All right, I'm hanging out for a few minutes with Jeff from VIZOR. That's VIZOR, VIZOR, a proud sponsor of the K-12 Tech Talk podcast. Jeff, how's it going?
I'm doing, Chris. Thank you. Doing well, Chris. Sorry, thank you. Yeah, I appreciate you having us on. It's always a pleasure to hang out with you guys for a little while. So yeah, looking forward to a chat today.
We were just discussing snow. So you're coming to the podcast from where?
From Montreal, Canada, snowy and cold, Montreal, Canada.
And I'm in Missouri, so I was just telling you we got like our first. It might be a half an inch. I don't even think it's that. I think it was like 0.02 or something inches of snow. But what do you guys have right now?
We have about that during the walk with my dog this morning. That's probably how much fell during that 15-minute walk. Yeah, it's not so bad right now, but it's actually a little bit early for the ground to be completely covered and it to be completely white. It's beautiful though. Watching the snow fall from the warmth of the office here is
I love
is
it.
just fine as long as I'm inside. Yeah.
I want to chase this story because you told me something I didn't know, and maybe we have some listeners that won't know it.
Mhm.
Um, Tell me about this snow tire thing uh,
Yeah.
that you guys have to do.
Yeah, so here in Quebec, in this province, there may be other provinces in Canada that have this same law, but in Quebec, we have to have winter tires on our car from December 1st to March 15th. You cannot drive without winter tires. So, winter tires, for those not familiar, are different than all seasons, right? So, there's summer performance tires, there are all seasons tires, and then there's winter tires. And winter tires have like a snowflake on it. It's got to be certified winter tire. And if you
And
get stopped, pulled over anytime in December 1 to March 15th without those,
you get a ticket.
you're, yeah, oh, yeah. You're definitely getting a ticket. Yeah.
That's fascinating to me. I love it.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
let's talk about Visor.
Yes, sir.
So again, you guys have been hanging out with us for a while, and we have met in person a couple of times now, I believe, and we've done
Mhm.
some webinars. Uh, Last month ish, we did Hayden's hot deal on
Yes.
K12 Tech Pro with Visor. So we did this post on K12 Tech Pro. It was Ask Visor Anything, and got some feedback from that. So I want to drill you with a couple different questions.
Yeah.
And let's just explore Visor. I always think on the podcast, we probably do an okay job with explaining our sponsors. So this is an opportunity for you to clear the air. And all of the times that we fumble the ball, you're going to correct us on all these things. So first question is, if I'm a K-12 tech and I've never used Visor, never heard of Visor, besides just when I say Visor with a Z, VIZOR, what critical problem are you solving?
Yeah. So overall, I think the critical problem, if purposely leaving an S off problem there, just having a single repository with all the information that you need in order to make fully informed decisions regarding your management of your student devices primarily, but all of your IT assets. So unpacking that a little bit, Chris, I think that kind of allows, well, Visor's a digital platform ultimately that supports the management of processes through automation. So the processes around managing IT assets, whether you have a digital platform or not, you have some process in
Yep.
place. You get the devices in students' hands, you move them from one OU to another to make sure that the correct policies and protections are in place on those devices. The kids are using them, they're going to break them, they're going to go into some sort of repair process. So you've got all these processes that you're following, regardless of whether or not you're using a platform like Visor. But what Visor does is it applies this level of automation to those processes. So it automates a lot of those processes for you. So an example of that automation just said moving a device from one OU to another. So you can automatically, you check the device out to a student, you scan the device, scan the student's ID or type in their name, check it out to that student. That'll automatically then move that device to the appropriate OU for that student. When it goes into the repair process, you have the ability to track and manage the device through its repair process, right? So we're going to create a repair ticket. We're going to manage and follow that repair ticket through its process. We're going to automate the steps by which we're communicating with the technical team that there's a device requiring attention. So all sorts of process management through automation inside of Visor. So what Visor is doing is it's giving We've talked about this before, I think, on your podcast, but the technical teams that the districts today are working with are overwhelmed. Yeah, this is a significantly outnumbered team of techs when
Yeah.
you compare it to the number of people that they're supporting, be it students and other faculty and staff members. So they're outnumbered. We're trying to give them the ability to do more with less. So remove those kind of minute and small management, time-consuming management tasks through automation. So that's the big one there.
And to talk about devices in particular, I think
Mhm.
we commonly, I mean, of course, we mostly talk about Chromebooks,
Yeah.
but what other devices can we manage in VIZOR?
Yeah, that's a good one. So certainly we do focus on Chromebooks. So our partnership with Google for Education, our very significant integration with the Google Admin Console. The reason for this sort of tight integration and this focus is because student devices typically represent the largest asset type in any school district, right? And most school districts are using Chromebooks, and so that's why the focus. But
Yep.
with VIZOR, you also have the ability to leverage that process automation and the management capabilities to manage other asset types as well. So not just student devices and certainly not just Chromebooks, but other computing devices, other network devices, lab equipment, digital whiteboards, TV screens, projectors, right down to things like consumables. So desks, chairs,
Okay.
screens, keys, like literally anything. There's school districts that are using VIZOR to track things like their medical kits inside of classrooms.
I
So
was
if a
going to say, what's
teacher,
the most
yeah.
interesting thing is being tracked? Would you say medical kits?
Yeah, I think the cool ones for me, I kind of typically talk about these a lot because they're kind of off the wall, at least in my mind. So, physical education equipment,
Yeah.
band equipment, so musical instruments and things. But yeah, the one that strikes me as I think the most relevant really are those medical kits. And so we're combining two of the different sort of sides of the VIZOR platform insofar as teachers, if they, let's say a student cuts their hand and the teacher has to take some gauze and maybe some, I don't know, some rubbing alcohol and a couple band-aids, or that's what's used in order to kind of manage that particular injury. Then they can submit a ticket. So essentially say, this is what I use, and this can go to
Yeah.
the nurse or the medical team inside of the school so that they know that these things need to be replenished in that medical kit in that classroom. So managing that specific classroom's medical components, I thought that was kind of a cool use of VIZOR, a little bit off the wall.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think we easily put VIZOR in the corner of I almost want to just say Chromebook
Yeah.
management. If you just ask someone that knows a little bit about VIZOR, that's what they would say. And
Hmm.
you're going to primarily use it for your tech department management, I imagine.
Yes.
That's the greatest use case. But cool to chase a little rabbit and think about here's also these other things that we could use it for.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, facilities and maintenance teams, that's another sort of bit of an offshoot, I would say, like apart and aside from the technology team.
Yeah,
And that's a bit of a hand in glove type situation too. But yeah, it's these are things that are down the road. Yeah, these are not things that districts typically implement on kind of day
sure.
one or even year one with the use of VIZOR. But once they start leveraging, once we get the configurations done, once VIZOR's in place for a while, people start to recognize its configuration capabilities and extend the use and the tracking capabilities of VIZOR to manage other asset types. So I love that. I think that's pretty cool.
Sure. Okay, so jumping back to device, walk me
Mhm.
through a typical like process procedure for what device check out or check in looks. I guess
Yeah.
run through both of those sides, please.
Yeah. So in terms of kind of a process supporting sort of perspective. So you check the device out to a student, as I mentioned before, so VIZOR will automatically associate then that device to that student, of
And
course.
that's with
And then
a barcode scanner. Is that with the
exactly.
computer? What is it?
Yeah, barcode
Scanner.
scanner. So the asset tag on the computer, whether that's something that the service provider provide or put on the asset, if it's the asset tag native to the manufacturer, whatever kind of identifier a district has on the asset, and it doesn't have to be a barcode. It can be like typed in, right? You can just type in sort of unique identifier that
Yep.
way. And then same thing for the student. If students have student IDs with a barcode, you just scan that. If they've got like a lanyard that they're wearing, just scan it. It's kind of cool. That's the one that I think is the most effective. But if not, then maybe smaller districts, if that's not in place, they can just type in the student's name, and then as soon as they find it, VIZOR will find the unique student because we're integrated too with student information system, so we've got all that information inside of VIZOR. You click checkout, and that will automatically move that device again, associate to the student, but move that device to the appropriate OU, and that can be based on the student's OU or the grade level OU or the
Yep.
school OU or the classroom OU, whatever the OU structure is, it's going to move it to the appropriate OU. So that sort of process then gets automated. Nobody has to inform the technology team that this has happened. Nobody has to go physically into the Google Admin Console to move that device to the appropriate OU. So that's just sort of scratching the surface of one instance, the beginning essentially of the process. Actually, the very beginning would be enrollment and ZTE and
Sure,
having
sure, sure,
like
sure.
pre-provisioned devices and all that stuff that VIZOR is participating in as well. But there it is. So student will use it, let's say break it and go into the repair process. Actually, one step here that's really important too. I like this. I know that your district, Chris, that you guys have student volunteers that are
Yeah.
participating in repairs and things like that. So one of the things that VIZOR does through automation in terms of supporting process is it will automatically notify and communicate with all the stakeholders that need to be communicated with at every step of the way. And what I mean by that, or a good example there is, you can notify parents when their students receive a new device. You can certainly notify the student they've received a new device and ask them to electronically acknowledge receipt. And you can include in that notification proper use policies. And I love this one because what you're doing there is you're telling students these are the rules that you have to follow in order to properly care for this device. If you don't, here are the consequences. And mom and dad know about this as well. Your guardian knows about this as well. So they know that you've got to take care of this. They know that there's some skin in the game. This there's clear evidence that this alone, this communication, automated communication, lowers the number of tickets that school districts face without this level of communication. So
Yeah.
if you're informing students of this through automation, again, the tech team doesn't have to do anything other than write the template and then set VIZOR to send that out at whatever interval. So when they receive a new device, or if a loaner device is not brought back on time, VIZOR will automatically notify the parents, the technical team, the student, hey, that device needs to be brought back. Um, Another step of automation inside of process, right? So a part of a process is, well, what do we do if we loan a device to a student and they don't bring it back? What
Hmm.
what leverage do we have over the student? Well, with VIZOR, you've got the ability not only to automate communication to make sure everybody's aware of the fact that that device is due back, and there's now a charge that's being levied against that particular family because the device is not back. VIZOR can automatically disable the device, so remotely disable the device if it's not brought back on time. So these are the types of things that technology teams are dealing with, right? What process are we going to follow here, and how are we going to enforce the process? So VIZOR not only defines the process in many cases, like based on ITIL compliance and best practices from our industry, but also automates those processes for the tech team. So it's kind of I don't want to oversimplify it, but there is certainly an element, a component of set it and forget it,
Yeah.
so that you can move on to doing what's most important. And this is what drives me, Chris. I know that we've talked about this before, but the idea that we can participate in giving technology teams more time to deliver technology to students so that students can be better students, that's what this entire game is all about.
Yeah, I can think about one-to-one 10 plus years ago at my school district. And we when we went to high school with Chromebooks, that was also when we introduced that student technician program.
Hmm.
And the paper trail, we had processes, but it was always pieces of paper. And I
Yeah,
felt even the 10 years ago, I was like, I don't why why am I using paper again? But it
right.
was what made sense with getting things to move. And also the emails that we had to pump out.
Mm.
Uh, and I would love to give my 10 years ago to say, hey, librarian, you can move this device to the lost Chromebook OU, but I can't give the librarian those rights. So I love hearing these stories of the schools that have automated these things,
Yeah,
uh, and you're saving all those emails you've had to send out from tech department to secretary so that she can do the fine and sis,
yeah,
to let the kid know, like, hey, go back and get your new device because your Chromebook's broke.
yeah,
Uh, to the building technician, that there's a Chromebook sitting at this library that needs to get fixed now. Can you go pick that up? It's just
yeah.
automated.
And
Uh,
there's so many gaps in there, right, Chris? Like everything that you
yes.
just said represents a gap through which kind of the device itself, if not the story of the device, can fall through. So
Yeah.
having a digital platform in place kind of fills those gaps as well. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, we used to have stacks and stacks of paper, um, of, and it was like, here's the issue form, and then this is what you do with it, and then when it's done, here's the completed form,
Yeah.
and again, all the emails and the tracking there too. Okay, so talking about devices, and I think I've actually seen this report from a demo that you did as well, but I know that you can help um, districts plan replacement cycles and kind of help with budget because of some of the tracking that you can do in Visor. Can you touch on that just a little bit?
Yeah, yeah. So I think probably what we're referring to here is the fact that Visor's tracking end of life for devices, right? So the moment a device is purchased, starting with that, so the device is purchased. If there's a funding source that's used to purchase that device, Visor's tracking that. Visor, through integration with manufacturer APIs, can automatically import and track warranty information about devices. So you'll always know what part of your fleet is under warranty. If there's a portion of the estate that's coming up for warranty expiration. So Visor will notify tech teams of that. And in fact, tech teams have the ability to set the parameters for notification so they can notify themselves or remind themselves as often or as many times as they'd like. So at the 12-month period, 6 months, maybe 2 weeks, whatever, 1 week, 1 day before either end of life or warranty expiration. So those are two things that really help with forecasting and budgeting requirements. So knowing that there's 500 devices that are coming
Yeah.
up to end of life in the next 12 months, we need to either apply for some funding for this or or just set aside some budget and get some budget allocation. The other one cool there in terms of funding source is that Visor can help quickly and easily I guess, facilitate or fulfill audit obligations, right? And so if you're being audited by a funding source, because of the fact that Visor's tracking those funding sources, you can produce a report very quickly, identifying all assets that were purchased with a specific funding source
Yeah.
and how many are still active in the environment, how many maybe are lost or stolen, or when is their warranty going to expire, when is their end of life going to occur. So all of the information that you would need about the devices that were purchased with that funding source is available through Visor as well.
I like it.
Mhm.
Are there other, I guess I call it can't live without features? Are there a couple that you'd like to mention that you really think are stick out that folks use other than,
Yeah,
check in, check out? What else?
I think, yeah, we talked about we kind of touched on this a little bit, but one of the cool things just in terms of repairs, so there's certainly an entire side of the Visor platform that focuses on repairs and repair management, as well as other help desk ticket types. So this is like similar to how Visor focuses on Chromebooks but can manage other assets. We certainly do focus on repair tickets, but we can manage help desk tickets of other kinds as well. But on the repair side, Visor has the ability to automatically calculate the cost of a repair. And then Visor can also be taught essentially during the implementation process under what conditions do I charge this cost back to the end user? And if I do charge it back to the end user, how much of the cost am I
Yeah.
charging back to the end user? So it's a pretty sophisticated engine. There's a lot of parameters that can be set in order to determine if and how much of a repair to be charged back to a student. So that's a pretty cool one. And once you have that kind of set it and forget it type scenario that I mentioned before, that becomes I think it would it would be identified as a tough to live without once you've got that done because it's managing that entire process for you. So the device comes in, we're notifying the tech.
Yep.
There's a repair process that's done. Even if it leaves the district, right, goes to a service provider, we're still calculating things, we're still tracking, we're still managing at that point. When it comes back into the environment, there's a determination that Visor is going to make there, and then continue that process. So notify the family that there's now a charge, identify all of the different reasons for that charge, include in a link in that notification, a link to your payment processing system so that the cycle can be
Cool.
completed. The payment processing system speaks back to Visor, says the fee is now, negated. They've paid their fee. They've satisfied this debt. And then, you sort of move on. So you're tracking the debts, you're tracking the fees that are associated with students. So all kinds of different, like I say, supporting process through automation.
Awesome. All right, I
Mhm.
have a couple more questions that came from K12 Tech Pro members, and these are a little more detailed, so I kind of put them
Nice.
towards the end here.
Yeah.
Um, uh, this person said, I'm looking for a solution that will allow asset inventory to be broken down by building and room. So I guess quickly answer that one. Is that a yes or no, building room?
That's an absolute yes. Yeah. So through our concept of kind of role-based views, permissions, Visor has the ability to identify exactly who has access to what. So you control everybody's access into Visor. You
Okay.
can streamline it. People don't have to sort of search through different kind of areas of information.
Okay. Then there's a couple follow-ups with this. I'd like for our users to be able to view an asset inventory of the room they are assigned to. So
Yeah.
can
So
we
that
can they move around folks as room changes happen?
Exactly right. So you'll associate a user with a room, and then that user would have access to the information about that room or be responsible for the inventory audit of that room, and then remove other rooms' assets from their purview so that they don't have to, again, sift through that information. So
Okay.
it's a very important concept, I think, advisors, location tracking and sort of having the concept of location and associating those locations with specific stakeholders. So a principal, right, can see all of the I don't know if that's getting too far ahead. I'm anticipating maybe the rest of that, but there it is. You've got the ability to certainly manage information based on location.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So then a follow-up. I'd
Mhm.
love for principals to be able to view the asset inventory status of their entire building.
Yeah, so that's great. So we're kind of moving up a level now, right? So a teacher might be responsible for a classroom, and then a principal for everything in that particular building, in their particular school, and then maybe the technical representative for all the middle schools would have
Gotcha.
access to all those, and then the tech director maybe has access, of course, to all the schools. So yes, absolutely, we would definitely. That's a very, very key, like I said, sort of principle inside of VIZOR is that
Yeah.
location so that we're ensuring that people don't have access to things they shouldn't, nor have to go through information that's, irrelevant for them.
And then it's live as changes take place. Is that correct?
It is insofar, well, actually, let me clarify that. Live as changes takes place, depending on the directionality that we're referring to. So from, let's say, VIZOR to the Google Admin Console, for example, if we're talking about a Chromebook, you check a device out to a student, immediately that Chromebook is moved to the appropriate OU. So that's live. In the case of, let's say, a repair ticket that requires a screen to be replaced, and you take a screen from inventory, and that's a part that's associated with this repair, that will, in real time, live, remove that screen from inventory, reducing the inventory count by one of that screen. So that's live.
Yep.
But in terms of the Google Admin Console, for example, updating VIZOR, so let's say you enroll 20 new Chromebook devices in the Google Admin Console, VIZOR's not finding out about those in real time. The reason for that are limitations that the Google Admin Console places on us through API, like calls to the API are limited just for bandwidth reasons. It's kind of a big call. So you don't want to be constantly pushing all the information from the Google Admin Console down to VIZOR. So this is done on a more scheduled, controlled basis, so maybe once a night. So that would be kind of so live, yes, in some cases, and then in
Yep.
other cases where it doesn't necessarily make sense, not quite as live.
We use ClearPass for some network management stuff, and
Mhm.
when we put in a new Chromebook, we have to wait. We're looking for a MAC address, and we just are at the mercy of Google. Like, can you please update? So
Right.
I can pull that down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting, actually, Chris. One
Yes. Go
thing,
ahead.
just very quickly on that, is that we do have there's what exists is called a sync button that will force that to happen
Yes.
right away. We just don't like using it just because of the bandwidth again on the network.
Yep.
But yeah,
Yep.
you're
Yep.
right. We can only operate as quickly as the console.
Yep. Okay, another so that answer that series of questions. So let's talk about because the next member asked about modules and can they be purchased separately, and we didn't really talk about pricing at all. So I know that you have some different things that we can unpack quickly with this. So
Yeah.
just talk about the pricing in general, I think, and not necessarily into the weeds of it, but I know that you guys came out with something, the essentials thing.
Yeah.
Can you just touch on that, please?
Yeah, so we have VIZOR for School, which VIZOR for Schools, which is the kind of full version. It includes two different areas of the VIZOR platform, the help desk area and the asset management area. It's combined, it's one price, that's it. If you wanted to purchase either of those separately, you certainly can, but what we try to do is simplify as much as possible. So we created what we call VIZOR Essentials, which is really just for not the help desk part. So just for managing assets. So those are the
Okay.
two flavors. You either get everything or you get essentially half. If anybody wanted to purchase the help desk area on its own, we can certainly do that. What we tried to do though, Chris, as much as possible, is simplify pricing. Um, we've really tried to make this as easy as possible for technologists to be able to go to business administrators and superintendents and say, this is what we're trying to get. This is what it costs. This is how it's licensed, and do all of that in one sentence.
Yep.
And I know how hard that is. Not a lot of vendors have accomplished what we have. And that's just essentially, let's get one number that makes sense. Student enrollment is the one number that everybody has access to. It doesn't fluctuate significantly, or at least not to the same degree that the number of, let's say, computing devices like CPUs used to be a way that a lot of people licensed products like ours. So basing it on student enrollment is simple. It's easy. It's very easy to forecast out. So what in 1 year or two or three, what is our what is our fluctuation rate? And we don't, we're not down to the single student, but really just sort of a round number. And then we don't change our prices. So that's something else that's really important. This is a little bit of a shot across the bow maybe to some other vendors in the market, but we haven't changed our prices. We're now at year 7, where we have not, sorry, increased our prices
Yep.
in 7 years. We've changed the pricing structure, as you just alluded to, with the introduction of VIZOR Essentials, but it's a really easy. We're trying to make this as easy and compelling a story as possible for technologists to sort of give them all the tools that they need to go to their super, to go to their BAs and say, this is what we need, this is what it's going to cost, and this is what it's going to cost, not just year
Yeah.
1, but in year 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, so some of the follow-ups to this, and you've answered this. So it doesn't matter how many techs I have in my department. It doesn't matter how many teachers I have or users I have. It's going to be based upon that student count.
Yeah, so we want your student volunteers on the tech team accessing VIZOR. We want teachers accessing. We want librarians. We want parents interacting with VIZOR. We want as many people as possible interacting with VIZOR so that everybody gets familiar with the environment and is able to put more and more details, data, information inside of VIZOR so that technology teams have all of this information that they need, again, in order to, going back to the first thing we talked about, make fully informed management decisions based on all the information that's relevant to those
Yeah,
decisions. So no, we do not charge based on anything at all other than one number, and that's student enrollment.
awesome. Well, Jeff, am I missing anything? Anything else that you want to say about Visor?
I appreciate that opportunity, Chris. Yeah, just to mention that we are very much looking forward on the sales team as much as everybody else for our new version, which is coming out. We've got it anticipated. There's no official release date yet, but we're really excited about
Cool.
Q1, and we're really thinking that it's going to be early Q1. I'm actually hoping maybe, Chris, that I can or somebody on our team can have an opportunity to maybe come back and talk to you and your audience about what's new and exciting. We've got some really cool features that we've been working on. Innovation is a really big part of our landscape, obviously, and that's just based on customer feedback. That's something that really absolutely drives everything that we do. And, there's lots of feedback that we've received and we continue to receive. And I love that. And one of the big ones I'm excited about, just to sort of whet the appetite maybe, is we've got this really new and cool check-in, check-out process. So it's already, as I mentioned, kind of a pretty heavy hitter in our arsenal right now. But the team has done a really cool job. I had a sneak peek at it, a really cool job of speeding that process up. So less clicks.
Awesome.
I know that kind of sounds whatever, but for your audience, I think they'll appreciate the idea that 2 or 3 or 4 less clicks can have a huge difference when you're talking about checking devices out to hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of students. It's a really big deal. So we're very excited about what's coming up.
Awesome. Yeah, I've my and I guess I'm sales pitching for the matter of it. When you start to do I've talked to some folks about Visor or even just asset management in general.
Hmm.
The math starts to make some pretty easy sense. If you think about the time saved, if you think about, well, because I had Visor, I got these devices back where they were a loss before. When you start to do that math, and in particular with Visor, with the student count math, it starts to make sense where you're breaking even or you're making some financial gain because of what you can do with your system. So I would encourage folks to reach out to Visor, visor.cloud/K12 Tech Talk, figure out the pricing, and then do your own math because it's budget friendly. You
Yeah.
can really get into the weeds of it on, okay, if I can recover this amount of devices and I didn't normally do that, this is what's going to justify the cost for me to do this. If I'm saving time on clicks and what my libraries are doing, what my student tech uh, uh, system is doing, and I can get them to do some other things now that I've freed up time.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. So
Yeah. You start to add in the opportunity costs and the things that you can be doing with your time.
yes,
You're exactly right. That's a whole other number. Even like checking in thousands of devices and then setting them all with one action to power wash, right? And so not having to individually go and do that. It's just the numbers get very kind of orders of magnitude pretty quickly,
yeah,
when you start to add in all of the different things that you can do. And the other cool thing, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but I get
no, you're
excited
good.
when we start talking about stuff like that. 'Cause you mentioned it is the ROI for small districts. Okay, the scale is different, but just within your audience, we've got districts as small as 1,000 students, and we've got districts as high as 35, 40,000, I think, from your audience. And then beyond that, largest districts that we work with are over 100,000 students. So the return on the investment is there for everybody. There's nobody
Yeah.
that, there's no size. Well, I don't want to say no size, but very few districts that wouldn't be able to, maybe a small private school or something like that. But yeah, generally speaking, everybody's got that ROI that can be gained through. Again, we're not the only player in town and we're not going to be the right fit for everybody, but I certainly encourage anybody who hasn't done so to really explore this landscape because this is a technology that I think can really help technologists do exactly what we said before, and that's
Yeah.
deliver technology to students.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jeff.
Thank you, Chris. My pleasure. And like I said, I hope for an opportunity to speak with you guys again real soon.
Sounds great.